Why did you do that?
Hey guys, welcome to another episode of All Bass Creations TV. Today we have the bass extraordinaire, my man Kevin Walker, who has played for a ton of different artists, everybody from Prince to Justin Timberlake, to a whole bunch of people. Who else you play for? Who else you got?
Well, first of all, I'm glad to be here, man. I've worked with Najee, Angela Bofield, Jodeci, and I started off with Wilson Pickett.
Okay, yeah.
Wilson Pickett back in the early 80s.
Yeah.
Fresh out of I was still in high school. So,
awesome.
So far it's been about 30 some years of playing with different artists.
Oh, yeah. And see, you started right here in the DMV area out of Baltimore.
I started right here in the DMV, Baltimore area. I've come from Baltimore City Public Schools.
Okay. Which high school?
And I went to Pimlico Junior High. I don't think we have a Pimlico Junior High anymore, but that's where I got my start from, right there in Baltimore for Park Heights Avenue, in that area. And it's been ongoing ever since I first got an opportunity to play bass, and that was like 1979.
Yeah. So you've been touring and playing with different people even before you graduated high school. When did you start? First off, when did you start playing bass?
I actually started to play bass at about 15 years old, 14 or 15 years old is when I started. It was natural to me. It just kind of came to me. I didn't have to work hard. Yeah, it felt right, and I understood the instrument. Had a lot of major influences, a lot of people in the neighborhood who were all instrumentalists.
Right.
They influenced me and kept me inspired. Had a guy that had a bass across the street, and I bought it from him for $30.
Oh, okay.
And then about maybe 3 years later, I was on tour with Wilson Pickett.
Okay, yeah. So that being your first tour, like what's some of the things that stick out in your mind from that really kind of that you took away that you didn't know before? You know, like you're a rookie, you don't know the game as a pro. Like, what's some things that you took away from your first tour?
Well, I think one of the biggest influences that I took away from it was, I would say, having fun. Because at that time, money didn't really mean anything to me because I was staying home with mom. So,
right.
You know, I had to get her permission for me to even go on tour. I had the opportunity to work with a guy named Curtis Pope. He was the musical director for Wilson Pickett, and I actually played in his brother's band. His name was James Pope.
Okay.
So he was a music teacher at Green Spring Junior High.
Awesome.
And so the biggest thing that I got out of it was just have a good time. Those guys were cutting up all the time. I wasn't making but about $100 a gig then.
Yeah.
We were going all over the world. It was a big deal to me. Just to get on an airplane was a big deal to me then.
Right,
you know what I mean?
right.
Then to have opportunity to actually play was just cream on top of everything. So I just enjoyed. At that time, it was more about having fun and being able to travel and just play my instrument and enjoy playing it. I think that's the biggest thing I got out of it. I wish I still felt that way now.
well, you know, one thing I've noticed about you, you know, your personality is always a very laid-back personality. You always, you know, even from the first time I met you, you know, you were always very inviting, very friendly towards people. You know, and I know how it is out here in the music industry.
Absolutely.
Life can make you cold and hard. You know, how do you keep that friendly mentality, even though you've been in the game so long and people, you know, have done wrong by you? Let's just say that much, you know.
Yeah, I've definitely been cut up a few times by some folks. I think the thing that keeps me from being bitter is understanding that the music is not who makes you. It's the person that you evolve to be through the music.
Yeah.
And I keep that pretty stable in when I deal with people.
Yeah.
I like to deal with people first before I don't like to wear the music on my chest like an S. Some people walk in the room, they're great musicians, and they walk in with an ego and an S on their chest, and all of a sudden they're just not the friendliest people in the world anymore. Yeah, you don't even want to want to be around them. You don't even want to be around the atmosphere.
Right.
I like to have fun. I like for people to be themselves because I like being myself.
Right.
And when I'm myself, I can engage in anything, have a great time playing music, and also I get more from other musicians like yourself that I can absorb from because there's not a competition thing. It's all about, wow, the energy is great.
Right.
And that's what I can say about it.
I definitely appreciate that.
Yeah.
I see you got a big plaque on the wall for Justin Timberlake here, and as well as some other pastors here. So let's talk about some of the artists that you've been working with.
Sure.
I guess let's start with the big triple platinum on the wall there.
Yeah. Well, Justin was great to work for. It's a great boss, and this will probably be one of the biggest things I probably do in my lifetime. Not knock on wood, and of course, maybe other things. This is one of them. And I can say that, as far as, bass playing and what this guy offered me was an opportunity to see the big stage bigger than I ever imagined it would be. To play in front of 30 or 40, 50,000 people
it's a big deal.
It's a big deal, and
a lot of pressure.
Yeah, you have to stick to your script, and you got to play the music. No time for individual stuff. No time to had to dance and sing and play bass synthesizer. And I hadn't played before I did this tour. I hadn't played bass synthesizer in about 10 years.
Wow.
So when I got back to it, and I got the gig, oh, by the way, you got to play bass synth. I'm like, oh man, I had to run back and get my thing together real quick because there was a lot of people who wanted the gig. So
of course.
I had enough of savvy in me and enough retained in my brain to pick it up enough to do the gig. So it was a great gig, and not a whole lot to it, but in terms of musicality. But what I did learn from it is discipline, and I learned about the beat. You are an entertainer on stage as well as a musician when you're doing something of this stature. So it's not about how good you are. Again, it's about how good your 100% of you are, because you have to dance, sing, play, and windows.
So how is it learning the choreography for that? Like, did y'all have separate rehearsal? You had band rehearsal and then choreography rehearsal?
Absolutely. We had choreography rehearsal with a choreographer. They put the instrument in your hand, and I was always second guessing myself. I can do the choreography, but can I do it in play?
Yeah.
But when we had a pretty good musical director. His name was Kevin Walker, and he had his way about doing things. But when we needed results, when he gave you that look, it's like, I better get this together real quick. So I found myself compensating and playing basic stuff just to get through the choreography, because that's just as important on a big stage as playing your note.
Yes.
So I had to concentrate on doing that. And even though I'd never done it before, when I look at the videos, I'm like, is that me? Damn, I was pretty good. You know what I mean? So
you do it for a few weeks, you be all right at it.
Little feather in my cap. So
and I'm sure you got a few new dance steps that you could throw out there every once in a while.
Yeah, man.
So let me see what else you got here. You got so what about with Prince? Let's start here. What was one of the main differences between the Prince tour or dealing with Prince and dealing with Justin Timberlake as artists?
I think. Well, first of all, they came with two different fan bases.
Yeah.
And much respect that I do have for Justin, I think he's on his way to legacy.
Yeah.
But Prince was already a legend.
Yeah.
So, in that regard, when we got on the stage with Prince, it was more about making sure that you kind of fit into where his mindset is and what he was doing. And at that time, I was working with a group called the Funky Ballheads, and he was in a state where he wasn't dealing with record labels.
Yeah,
so
at all.
So first thing he said to us, I'd hung out with him for about a year.
Yeah.
Behind a good friend of mine, Kirk Johnson, who's his drummer, and one of his best friends, and I'd hung around for about a year, just hanging out at Paisley and going to parties and having a great time, doing some studio stuff with him, and just messing around. And finally, we decided to put together a project called the Funky Ballheads. Prince got on it. We cut some music with him, and he played on it and helped write some stuff. And then finally said, I want you guys to come on and go on tour with us, with me. And So like I said, the difference is we had to fit him. He said, but the only thing is y'all can't have a record label. No record labels. I don't want to do any record labels. You got a record label. You can't do the tour. So we were the first band to play with a major artist on a major stage with no record deal. We had not even been heard of. And we were opening for Prince. And we went over so good, he actually started coming out and playing with us. And that's how I actually got the reputation for playing, with Prince. Because he made us a part of his show. Yeah. Opposed to us just being the funky ball heads opening up. Right. So that was kind of like an honor. Yeah. So I think the difference is that, Prince had a built-in audience. And it was a lot more area for me to be creative with being who I was as Kevin, opposed to being on Justin's stage. I had to be a dancer, the character that they needed. Right. I had a chance to really be myself, which actually Prince. That's the first time that Prince gave me that opportunity that I could actually be Kevin. And like, okay, who is Kevin? Right. Who is Kevin on the big stage when he's doing his music, his bass lines, and his music? So that was what Prince offered. Right. Definitely.
So you basically it was kind of more of a freedom that you didn't necessarily get, because a lot of times on the pop circuit they got backing tracks, they got lights, lasers, and everything else. Everything works together. Exactly. And not that Prince didn't have that stuff, but he still had room for him to, if he felt like just doing something crazy, he just go do it. He not fixing to have anything that's going to prohibit him from doing what he felt would make the show better.
Yeah, I mean, he was a constant pro. I mean, I learned so much from him. It was just more about doing the show, but I think he was a big advocate in just putting you on the spot and putting pressure on you. The pressure that Prince would put on you on stage in terms of you stepping up. Justin did it too, but it was in a different way, because Prince said, now you got to step up to yourself. Right. Now, what do you got to bring to the table in terms of what, so that's a lot of pressure. And I learned a lot from it. I thank God for it.
So what advice do you have for, I guess, let's make it a two-part question. So we got the up-and-coming guys, right? Yeah. And then we got the guys that are up-and-coming that have already been on a tour and they're in and off of tours. So let's deal with the new guys first. So what are some tips you have for the newer bassists out there, that the newer guys that just learning things?
Well, I think that the times have changed a lot since I was coming up. When I was coming up, if you were a good bass player, everybody kind of knew it. Yeah. And your name went around and you got an opportunity. Right. Nowadays, you got thousands of great bass players. So I think the key now to getting out there now is, first of all, staying focused on believing in yourself, because the competition can get so steep. We all can get discouraged. Yeah. And playing. It's not about how great you are. It really is about who you know in the business. Right. I think it's really about how you communicate with people. Right. How you what kind of time you can dedicate to the music. Right. Some people who don't do music for a living, which I've been blessed to do music for a living for 40 years. Yeah. I've never had or really kept a real stable job. I've had other jobs. Yeah. But I never kept them that long. Yeah. I've been doing this forever. So I think just, staying focused on what you do, surrounding yourself with people who do it as well. Yeah. Everybody that you deal with needs to be doing music for a living, because when you start to rub elbows with people who don't do it, you get the word I want to say, deception. And that deception can get in the way of your reality.
Yeah, that's because they don't ever see us making a living. Exactly. Like, when I pulled up to the house, I was like, this is nice. And a lot of people, I already knew your house was gonna be nice. Right. But the average person, they would have been really shocked. Oh my, really? I thought I was about to pull up to a condo or something. Yeah. But we make money too. We make a living too. Yeah. And there's levels to it. I try to tell everybody, there's levels to it. It depends on how long you've been in the game, what work you have put in. So everything not gonna come right up front. Some things gonna take years and years of you building, and hanging in there versus everybody else dropping out. Absolutely. So some of it's just stamina thing cannot hang in there longer than everybody else. You know,
absolutely.
Put more into it.
That's absolutely right. I'm gonna add on to what you said. In the music business, we have peaks and valleys. You're gonna be. I was on the top of the world when I got the Wilson Pickett gig. I was 14. I was on top of the world again when I got the Najee gig. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? As musical director. You know, Najee picked me because he saw me on stage playing with Prince, and we had a great conversation.
Yeah.
Out of the blue, the guy just says to me, "Hey man, I'm looking for a musical director. You think you could do that job?"
Yeah.
That was how it goes. You know what I mean? So all of the stories have, the artists that I have unique stories. Yeah. It wasn't like I walked in to a situation and just auditioned. It was circumstances. Mm-hmm. That being said, you have circumstances that predict what you're able to do in music. Sometimes you're on top, sometimes you go down.
Yeah.
You know, sometimes you can make, but you got to hang in there.
Right.
Music is not for the disheartened. You know, if you're not strong and have a vision, and you have to deal with it seriously. A lot of people play with music.
Yeah.
You know, I get really angry sometimes, especially if I had a drink or two.
Yeah, this is sponsored for real.
Yeah,
like,
because somebody don't understand. Like, look, man, this is not a joke. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? So, you know, and I think that's what you see. You're looking at my lifetime. You're looking at my life.
Right.
You know, now, like we said earlier, anybody can buy a nice house.
Yeah.
It's keeping a good house.
It's keeping it.
And that's when you have to understand the fundamentals and the economics along with the ability to discern what's important in the business of music.
Mm-hmm. So while we already talking to the new people, just so we can, I just want you to go a little further on something you said, surrounding yourself with people that do the same thing, especially growing up in a more troubled neighborhood, or you know, a neighborhood that's not very well off.
Right.
How do you surround yourself, or how did you surround yourself with people that had like minds to keep yourself out of trouble, you know, avoid extra confrontations, you know, that could have happened?
Well, I got to say this. Today. I have a lot of dear friends that I grew up with, musicians that you know. Some of musicians, we all started off together, they're no longer musicians.
Right.
But my biggest supporters in music were my friends that I kept around me, who we started off playing together. Yeah. But they maybe didn't hang in.
Right.
But what they would do was encourage me. Mm-hmm. And then when I got out there and they said, "Man, you playing with such and such," they begin to be my biggest fans. You got to have people around you that encourage you, because there are going to be moments that are dark.
Yeah. That
you're not going to be able to actually get through a situation, or you feel like it's like, man, I'm so disencouraged, you might have something bad happen.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? My friends were the ones who inspired me during troubled times.
Right.
You know. Now, along with that, once I told you a short story, and I'll talk about this. Yeah. I told him a story earlier about when I first got out on the road, I met up with Dennis Chambers, who happened to be on the show that I was doing. It was one of these big jazz festivals in New York. Yeah. I was playing with Wilson Pickett. We weren't playing jazz, but we were the headliner.
Right.
And Dennis was playing with all these great jazz musicians. And I come backstage, and I'm looking around. I said, "There's Dennis." You know, of course, he's from Baltimore. I said, "Dennis." He's like, "Oh, Kevin Walker, what are you doing here?" He comes, runs over to me, and shakes my hand. And he said, "Come here, man. I got to introduce you to some people." And he says, "Hey, man, this is Kevin Walker, man. He plays bass. He's from Baltimore, man. This guy's bad, man. You got to hear this cat." You know. And I'm like, wow. I'm saying to myself, man, did he talk about me? You know what I mean? And he's rapping and raving, and he introduces me to like Bradford Marcellus and Daryl Jones and the keyboard player that used to play on the Tonight Show. The cat died. Oh my goodness. He used to play with Sting.
I know
you know what I'm talking about? I can't think of the guy's name right now, but anyway. Everybody, you might think he played with Sting.
Put it in the comments.
Yeah, exactly. Put it in the comment. And but at any rate, that was a big thing for me. That boosted my ego. Yeah. The fact that Dennis Chambers actually thought enough of me to come and encourage me. Right. That being said, I'm saying be around people that's going to encourage you. Mm-hmm. You don't need anybody around criticizing you.
Right.
You don't need anybody telling you what you should be doing or what you can't be doing.
Right.
Being successful in music has no definition. It has no you do this or you cook it this way.
Right.
It's your meal.
Right.
Your what's on your plate is your food, the way you like it, and it happens for you.
Right.
So the point of that saying is you want to keep people around that keep you inspired.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, when you are successful, those people are still there with you. And usually the ones that encourage you still be there when you make it.
Yeah.
That's why when I come back home, I'm never like an egomaniac, like, oh man, I did this, well, y'all come and,
right.
y'all come get with me.
Yeah, yeah.
I still go down to 347.
Right.
I still go out and hang,
that's how we
and
met.
hang with the cats, even when I was off tour. And people say, man, why you down here with the 347 making this $100? I just saw you on the Jay Leno show, or I'm like, man, I started here. I got to the Jay Leno show right here.
Yeah.
This is where it starts. So a lot of people don't get it, and so that's what I want to say. Surround yourself, stay humble. Be a nice guy. And you'll find your evolution of who you are as you evolve as a person definitely defines what you have after the glamour and everything's gone and it's over with.
Right.
The people won't be just kicking you to the curb like you're zero. They say, man, now Kevin's the same Kevin, say like yourself,
Yeah.
Reggie's the same Reggie,
Right.
It's always been.
As you always been.
And that's the beautiful thing I like about,
Yeah, and that's the perfect segue into the next question with the slightly older guys, early 20s, you're in and off a tour, you don't know how to manage your money, you don't know how to, a lot of times you haven't realized that by just going on tour, you lose connections at home sometimes.
Right.
Not that you don't know those people anymore, but their loyalty becomes to someone else who now is going to be there on the regular. Now you got to be home, and you got to survive.
Yeah.
And tours don't always come around. And, of course, this is one of the reasons why I always encourage people to get your own thing going as soon as possible, But in the meantime, for a lot of musicians, when you don't know, if you don't feel like you're ready to be an artist, but you're on tour, and you're coming in and off a tour, what are some tips you got for those guys? Well,
I got to say this. For any musician who wants to do this for a lifestyle, entertainment in general, you got to wear more than one hat.
Yeah.
Like Reggie here. You do this, you play bass, you're a killer bass player, but you also I'm seeing you doing all this technical stuff that you're doing around here. I'm like, man, this guy's coming in like a cyborg. But this is what it's all about. You're taking something and you're supplementing the downtime, or you bring other things. Myself, I'm an engineer, I produce music, I teach, I do a little carpentry, some of the stuff you see back here. I assisted in making this happen. I think having something that you can do on your own time is very important. Having other skill sets. Not something that's going to take up all of your time. I don't recommend a 9 to 5 to somebody who wants to play a musician.
No.
Yes, it's a big sacrifice, but that's not what we do. Your time is so valuable in music to sit and understand your craft.
Yeah.
So, but on the other hand, if you get a skill set, which you develop from having, like we have to do, because we got to pay bills, that will take you a much longer way in the business, and then you can also do it when you want to do it and not on somebody else's time.
Yeah.
And you have all that other time for yourself.
Right. And you got to look at it, for me, you got to look at it as an entrepreneur.
Absolutely.
You can't look at this thing as, I'm waiting for somebody to call me, I'm waiting for this, I'm waiting for that. You take your opportunities when they come. If they call, they call. But in the meantime, while you're waiting for the call, we should be able to find evidence of you working somewhere on the internet, gigs, teaching. You got to get to a level where you can teach and do various things just to survive. And I try to express that to a lot of guys. They don't seem to get that, though. It's not just I do gigs. I teach, I do studio work. I do as many things musically related as possible. So I might not have another job, but I have multiple hats I have to wear.
Multiple streams of income.
Right, multiple streams of income, basically.
That's right.
So, when I'm sure when you've worked with different artists and did different things in the studio, sometimes you get work for hire, sometimes you get royalties, and those royalties add up.
Absolutely, and you know, and today, you know, I want to put this out there. I think this is very important for today, as we know it as of right now. There's not a lot of money in royalties in the music business unless you get something on the Black Panther, something like that, a movie like that,
or some commercials,
something really huge.
Like,
but for the in the day of the media, social media, iTunes and Amazon, they unfortunately don't give you your royalties because they get to see what you make before you do. So it doesn't make sense.
33 off the top.
Exactly.
Off the
top. And you don't even know what that is because you're not able to see what's coming in. So you're in the blind spot. And not saying, you know, not knocking iTunes, but that's real.
Yeah, we're not saying you're out stealing.
Yeah, we're not saying you're stealing, but we don't know what's going on.
We don't know if you are or you aren't. Just to be real, not lying to you.
Exactly. But on that note, it's very important that you understand you're not going to make $1 million off of your material. You make your $1 million off of doing this as a lifestyle and being able to develop resources for others.
Right.
You know, and that's what it's really all about. Coming together with people that, you know, you have something in common. Like we're going to be doing some things together. And just, you know, making it real. And that's what it's all about because right now the music industry is not being treated with the corporate respect that you're going to get from a hotel chain.
Right.
You're just not going to get it. They've never really respected musicians.
No.
And, you know, hopefully, me and Reggie have been talking about, we're going to be doing some interviews on the musician.
Yeah, the musicians.
And we got something that's going to be just as strong as, Where Are They Now? Or what's that?
What's the TV one?
The TV show, where they talk about the musicians and what they are now. Was it Unsung. Unsung. So we're going to have something where we're talking about musicians who are not unsung. They're actually still doing it for a living.
Yeah.
So they're not over and done with, but they got some stories to tell about the industry.
Right. And a lot of times those shows, they highlight only the artists, but a lot of times the musicians are the ones who's really going to tell you the real story of things you're not going to hear on the media or things that happen behind the scenes. You know, sometimes you need to understand that you will get screwed in this business sometimes. Like, you need to understand that, and you need to hear it from different people's perspectives so you could try to duck these little pitfalls.
Absolutely.
You know, and not just, you know, a lot of times as younger people, we make the mistake of thinking we know it all.
Exactly.
You know, oh, they got you like that, they ain't gonna get me like that. Yeah, they will because if you don't like to read or if you're not just knowledgeable.
Well, if you think you'll know it all, I found out a lot of younger people that, even in Baltimore, that are younger than me by a few years, very talented.
Yeah.
They got good heads on their shoulders. A lot of them lack the respect of seeing the wisdom that I have.
Right.
You don't necessarily look at somebody and feel like you got to kiss up to them.
Right.
But you need to understand, I got a lot of wisdom from a lot of great older musicians.
Right.
And what I would do is sit down and first of all respect what they have to say.
Right.
And they respected the fact that I was in that position to do that.
Yeah.
You know, even today, I go to musicians and say, one of my good guys is Skeet. We talked about Skeet.
Yeah.
Rodney Skeet Curtis, the bass player with Parliament Funkadelic. If I got some real issues, I'll call him up and talk to him because he's been doing this for 50-some years plus. So I'm like, man, I'm doing this. What do you think? He'll give me his advice.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And again, you know, respecting people who do the business, you can learn a lot from what they went through, so you get a better perspective of what the music has even evolved to today. Because you know, it's definitely a different game now.
And me personally, I've always, every time I meet older musicians, and this is something all you guys should do. When you meet older musicians, don't just sit there and ask them about all the music questions. As a matter of fact, they hate that.
Yeah. Or rip them apart because they don't get on the drums and play like your latest superstar drummer. That guy or bass player, he got that from Stanley Clarke or Marcus or James Jamerson. You got starting points.
Yeah.
The whole thing is to respect the fact that they're still there doing music.
Yeah.
If you see somebody still doing music as older, You want to talk to them.
Yeah, and a lot of times you don't realize, just like boxing, just like athletics, people have their heyday. As you get older, you get illnesses, you get older things slow you down.
So true.
But, you know, even besides that, when you meet them, you know, I know one of the biggest things they ask, how can I get on? And I'm trying to tell them, like, listen, don't go up asking all these music questions. You need to learn music theory and stuff like that on your own. Now, once you get to know people, they're more adept to the music questions.
Absolutely.
But you need to be talking to them about experiences, things that are actually take time for you, real time for you to learn. Like music stuff, you can sit down, you can read books, you can get all this stuff a lot of it out of books.
That's like YouTube.
Or listening to a bunch of music, you can grab it. But what you can't grab is those life experiences from everybody, a lot of the older musicians that are around you.
So true. So true. Yeah, I find that, you know, you definitely can get a lot from the older musicians. And the best thing you can get from an older musician is his respect. Because an older musician, like myself, not that old, but I am in my 50s. But the one thing I know that I can do, if for up-and-coming basis, I can make a phone call.
Right.
You know what I mean? I say, hey, and my phone calls still work.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But everything's not for everybody.
Right.
You know what I mean? So you definitely want to pick and choose the people that you do stuff for, but you want to make investment in friendship and sincerity when you go up to people, and just don't go up to them to use them for what you can get out of them. You want to go up and bring something to the table.
Right.
If you want to, you know, like we did. When we bring, we share stuff.
Yeah.
Well, you know, musicians should share the music and the knowledge, and it's got to be genuine. You know who you are when it comes down, and so do people who do stuff for you.
Yeah, and that's the community part of it. You know, even the gospel musicians in the area are starting to get together now.
Yeah.
My boy Phil Carter is actually throwing a big shade. He's got Doobie Powell, I think.
Oh yeah, oh man, one of my favorites.
PJ Morgan.
Yeah, PJ worked with me with Najee.
Yeah, and I'm gonna go. I'm gonna come.
Check that out, man. Yeah,
I'm coming play. It's a shed.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and it's a big shed, and they're gonna do some clinic stuff. But I'm gonna go and I'm gonna support and I'm gonna play just like all the other artists and stuff because it's important to get that scene community together that we haven't had before. Yeah. So with that being said, what's the last thing you want, I guess, to the people to know? Like, I guess, what projects you working on? What's some things you need the support of the people?
Well, here's what I'm doing right now. Right now, I'm working on some volumes of music. I've decided to do something with a project I'm working on called the Chronicles of Soul, which is like some soul groove music that I'm doing. I'm doing a compilation of different artists on the CD. Awesome. I'm going to do it in volumes, like a volume 1, volume 2, volume 3, and so forth.
Give it to 'em.
And every time I do it, it's going to be different musicians I'm going to be featuring. People in the industry, you know, that I've worked with, and then I'm going to do also the Jazz Chronicles. Same concept. Volume 1, volume 2, volume 3. Right. And I'm going to be putting these CDs out and producing them with various people in the country, from everybody that I know to up-and-coming musicians. Yeah. So I'm doing that to bring some fresh music and also patronize some of the people that I've had the opportunity of listening to, and now have the opportunity to invite them on my stuff. So this would be a good thing to bring out some great music. So that's what I'm working on right now.
Awesome. So do you have any particular website you want the people to go to, or what's your social media? Where the people can find
you can get me on Facebook. You know, Facebook is the best place to catch me, Kevin Walker. Okay. You know, Bassist on Facebook. You can find me on there, and there you can keep up to date with what I'm doing. But I'm currently working on a website that'll be advertised on my Facebook. So yeah. Awesome. And I will be coming out with a little solo bass album called Life Upon a Dream. Awesome. So that's it.
Okay. Yeah. So y'all make sure y'all go follow him, and make sure y'all support him and reach out, tell him what you thought of the interview. Tell me what you thought of the interview as well. You know, you can always find me at all my social media at Reggie Payne Bass. And of course, this has been another episode of All Bass Creations TV with my man Kevin Walker, the bass extraordinaire.
Thanks for having me, Reg.
Thank you.